Hey, I'm Christy with PK1homeschoolfun.com, and I'm so excited to get a chance to take a look at Apologia's math curriculum. So, this is actually my first time really getting into Apologia books. I've been homeschooling for about 8 years now. I have 4 kids. And I just, I've always had that feeling that I keep missing out on some of the really good curriculum. And I always had that nagging feeling like, man, everybody knows all these great curriculum and I don't. I used to go to curriculum fairs as much as possible and just go there. I mean, not even to listen to the lectures and such, but I would just go there by myself, sneak away somehow with my little notepad and just walk from booth to booth learning about what was out there, and I don't really know how I missed Apologia. So 8 years later, I'm thankful for the opportunity to really dive into these books. So I have to show you Apologia's Exploring Creation with Mathematics. And I don't know if you're like me, but I really do like to do as much research as possible before I click that buy button because I don't have a ton of money to waste trying to figure out what's going to work for my family. So I really hope my genuine heart for this video is to help you in some way make that decision for you and your kids. So they have levels 1, 2, and 3 for their mathematics um, curriculum. And these do correspond with grades 1, 2, and 3. However, they do have a placement test that you might want to take a look at before you decide to buy. It is pretty common for especially the lower grades, kindergarten and first grade, sometimes into second grade. By second grade, things kind of start lining up with each other. But for the early years, those early grades, there is quite a bit of variation I have noticed between different companies and where they start you off at. So it's also a little tough because my kids have they were born in September, pretty much all of them. So always summer births, so crazy. Always pregnant in summer. But anyway, so because of that, they kind of are not aligned with when school traditionally starts. So especially my youngest girl, she is kind of like halfway, like she should start her new year halfway through the year, if that makes any sense. So it's a little bit tough. But anyway, they do have a really good interactive sample online, so you can see. I'm going to show you some pages in this video too, but you can go through there, and there's also a placement test. You can kind of go down the checklist and kind of see where your kid measures up, because depending on how much they have worked with numbers and maybe if there's older siblings. I know a lot of times kids pick up a lot from the older siblings. So do take a look at that. This is a Christian curriculum, so there are some biblical connections throughout the book, and it comes with 2 components, okay? So you have the main book, which is the workbook textbook. So this is both their textbook and their workbook. And so they're going to have in here the instructions for an activity to do, then a teeny tiny, and by teeny tiny, I mean teeny tiny little lesson, and then 1 to maybe 3 pages max of practice to do that where they will actually write in their book. Okay, so this absolutely, you need this. And then it also comes with a teaching guide and answer key. Okay, so I have a lot of experience budget shopping for curriculum, and one of the things I would always look at is, do I absolutely need the teacher's manual, or can I get away with not buying it? So I want to answer that question for you for this curriculum. All right, let me go through what is in the teacher's guide. First, you have a daily schedule in here I wanted to show you. So this is a week by week daily schedule. It is this particular schedule is a 4-day schedule. And let me show you how many weeks are in here, because that is important when you're planning out your year. And lately I started to think of curriculum as, how likely am I to finish this? Because I don't know if you're like me, but I think a lot of us homeschoolers kind of have that time at the end of the year where we have to decide, are we going to push ourselves and get this finished, or are we just going to close the book and move on with our lives? So this is a 28-week curriculum. So I think, these, I'm going to tell you in just a minute, we're going to talk about how short these lessons are, but I think it's very, very feasible to think you can finish this in a year easily, and you'd probably get a little ahead. So the daily schedule is in there, and then of course the answer key. So one of the things that is kind of neat is that she puts the answers on top of the thumbnails. So it kind of helps figure out. So you have to look at like a big list of text trying to figure out what the answers are. So that is super helpful. And then in the back of the book, and this is, to be honest, this is why you probably want to buy this book for sure. Especially, just getting started, go ahead and make this purchase. In the back of the book here, you have all of the activity sheets that go with the lessons. So different kinds of cards to cut out, game boards, um, just different activities, charts that you are going to need, a clock to make, those kinds of things. You will absolutely need those pages to do the lessons in the workbook. Okay, so absolutely buy this book. If you have multiple kids, I'm going to give you a little tip. When you buy this book, you're going to get a secret code in here to access what they call book extras. And in the book extras, you're able to um, print out additional pages in this. So if you are um, going to reuse this for another kid later on, or maybe you have twins and you're homeschooling them both on the same grade, you could get away if you want to save your printer ink. I mean, sorry, if you if you don't want to have to buy two of these, you could just buy the one and then print additional ones at home. And then if you want to save your printer ink, you can just buy an extra book. So hopefully that breaks that down, answers that question. Sometimes it's hard to get that kind of information when you're just Googling and searching online. Okay, so let's get to the fun stuff. All right, so let me tell you the things that make this curriculum a bit different than others and how it stands out. So the number one thing, absolutely number one thing, these are very, very, very short lessons. So depending on the lesson, depending on how difficult the concept is, you might, and depending on how old your kid is, you might be able to bust these lessons out in 20 minutes or less. I would say that would be very easy to do. So that, to be honest, to be perfectly candid with you, that came kind of as a surprise to me. And that's because, well, my kids, we have a different situation going on in my house where we're spending an hour per kid every day with math, but we are a little bit behind, so we're trying to catch up over the summer. So that is something really different, okay? And then the second thing that I really want to point out is that there is a rhythm to these lessons that's actually kind of neat. It's basically play, learn, practice. And again, keeping in mind these are very short lessons. Now, I spent considerable time looking at their level 1 because that's kind of my niche, right? PK1, preschool, kindergarten, first grade. And the second and third grade books, of course, advance, but they all follow the same rhythm: play, learn, practice. And so this curriculum is actually really kind of neat like that. So the first thing you're going to do is some kind of activity. So it could be an activity like laying out a bunch of dominoes on different pieces of paper with numbers on them, and kind of taking a look at which numbers add together to make those combinations. Or it could be something like making a bunch of different balls of Play-Doh and then squashing different amounts of them to understand the addition facts that you're making. Or it could be a printable board game, or sorry, a board game that comes in the teacher's guide that you tear out and you play a little game with dice and markers. So those are some different types of activities you can do. It could be different, cups and adding different types of beans to them. But there's always a really simple activity that you do at the very beginning to introduce the concept and basically play with the numbers, which that is definitely my love language, right? Is playing with the numbers, playing with the information, because kids learn through play, especially those younger kids. They've got to be playing in order to learn. It becomes experiential knowledge to them. And then right after that, at that little activity, you're learning the concept, which is a very short lesson, I promise you, and then a small practice. So some of the practices in here are 1 page long. And again, this is the first grade one, and they get a little bit more advanced for second and third. Some of them might be 2, maybe 3 pages, but they are very short. So I just wanted to emphasize that because that is very different in this curriculum than any other curriculum that I've seen, is the length of the lessons. So to be able to do an entire year's lesson in short, or sorry, an entire year's curriculum in short lessons like that, It's pretty neat the way it's all laid out. So some extra tips for you. If I mentioned the book extras before, so you will get a code in your books that allow you to go on Apologia's website and access book extras for this. The book extras are, like I mentioned, extra pages you can print out. There's extra worksheets you can print out, and then there's a bunch of different external resources that they've put together for you. Um, so a bunch of different online games and just different help and support for teaching math. So those are actually really kind of neat. So definitely take the time to take a look at those. Um, also, let me grab my book here, sorry. Each unit in the teacher's guide, at the beginning of each unit, there is a supply list that you're going to need for the different activities. So again, the supplies are not that complicated. It could just be a pair of dice, some crayons, some Legos, um, a stuffed animal, scissors, tape, those kinds of things, and some beans. So what you want to do is go through the supply list. And then one of the things I always like to do, I usually can do it. I usually can get my act together enough to do this, but I like to try to make a little tote and then grab all my supplies over the summer, kind of start collecting them and organizing them into one central location. And if you do that, this one of the things I talked about in my blog post about this is the ease of teaching. And that is really becoming more and more important to me because I have 4 kids now. One of them is turning 3. I have 3 girls and then a little boy. My little boy is turning 3, and he is just a complete wild card. So our homeschool days, rhythm, our schedule is constantly changing. I feel like I can never quite get my feet under me. So it's becoming more and more important to our family that my kids can do stuff independently, that I don't have to spend hours and hours prepping, cutting, pasting, organizing all this different curriculum. So that's one thing that's very near and dear to my heart for this particular curriculum. It is so simple. And I think maybe that's the thing about having more kids and just getting older and having done this and having to learn all this stuff on your own, is that simplicity becomes one of the values, at least for me in my homeschool. So if you spend that time just kind of collecting all those little materials, you can go through it over the summer and just make sure you've got like a bag of beans and all of the little random things that you'll need. Then when it comes time to teach math, you really can just open, grab your couple things and go. And that's another thing I appreciated about this, is that at the beginning of your lesson, the very first thing you're going to see is a super simple checklist that tells you the, few items that you're going to need to do that activity. All right. So that is pretty much this curriculum in a nutshell. Those are the 2 big things that I wanted to point out, is the shortness of the lessons and the rhythm of the lessons, the play, learn, practice. That's what makes this curriculum so unique. I think it is a very, very good, especially for certain types of kids. So if you have a kid who needs any like short lessons for any kind of reason, if you have a kid who doesn't like math, who is kind of like nervous about doing school, if you're worried that they're going to become resistant to school or to math, or if you have kids who just don't like to do a lot of writing, maybe they're not ready yet. A lot of first graders, I know in the public school, they kind of try to get first graders to do more and more writing. In my experience with my 3 kids, well, because my 4th isn't quite there yet, but with my 3 kids that have kind of gone through first grade already, first grade's kind of tough to start writing so much for their hands, for their development. Maybe it's just the ages of my girls, but it wasn't until kind of like getting into 2nd grade that they really started being able to write a bit. So if your first grader is like my kids were when they were in first grade, this might be a really great option for you, because a lot of the learning is happening through the activities and the playtime. And so they're pretty much writing just enough to make sure that that they've got it down. Um, so for those kinds of kids, I would absolutely recommend this. I think it's definitely worth looking at. There is a really good digital sample of this curriculum, and you can take a look at levels 1, 2, and 3 on their website and flip through the different pages and kind of get a feel for it so you can make a good decision for yourself. And of course, we should probably talk about price. Now, I know price changes over time, so I don't know what it'll be when you're looking at this video, but they are having a sale currently right now, and the price is coming in under $70 for the 2 books. All right, I hope this video has helped you. These are my honest opinions. I hope it's okay that I put them out there in a sponsored video, but it is what it is, right? I want to help you make the best decision for you and your family when you're trying to purchase curriculum for your homeschool. So if you have any questions, shoot me a comment. Connect with me at Facebook on facebook.com/pk1kids, or connect with me through my website. You can go to pk1kids.com or pk1homeschoolfund.com. They're the same right now. I hope that helps you. Have a wonderful, blessed day, and remember to always follow the fun.